Hello everyone, I am very happy to start a new series today that I'd like to call Half the Story. How come we quote so many half of verses in our davening, in our liturgy, and in general? In order to understand this, let's take a step back and say, what's the problem? The Gemara in Megillah, Daf Kaf Aleph Amud Bet, and the Kaf Bet Amud Aleph, comes along and says that we have a problem with the reading of Rosh Chodesh. There's not enough psukim there to divide them into aliyahs following the regular rules and regulations. So what should we do? Shmuel says, take one pasuk and divide it in half. In other words, end the aliyah in the middle of the pasuk. However, Rav says, absolutely not, you can't do that. So the Gemara asks, Shmuel's idea sounds like a nice idea. Why is it that Rav says to do what we do, and that is to repeat a pasuk, both for the end of Rishon and the beginning of Sheni on a Rosh Chodesh? Says the Gemara, Kasavar kopsuke lo paskin Moshe anan lo paskinan lei. That is the iron-clad rule that we're going to come back to many times. Namely, that the verses that Moshe divided, we cannot redivide. In other words, if the pasuk begins with Vayomer and ends with the word Lamor, that is the pasuk for all eternity. Therefore, on Rosh Chodesh, you cannot split a pasuk in the middle and end an aliyah in the middle of a pasuk. This means, as a laner, the most important thing is that the pasuk remains a pasuk, that the Baal Koreh ends the pasuk, lowers his voice before going on to the next pasuk in the right place. So, because we have to quote a full verse, we have a big problem, as you're about to see in the chart in front of you. Let's start with the easiest one. In Parshat Ki Tisa, he gives Moshe the famous Yud Gimel Midot, the 13 attributes of mercy. So on the right side of the page, as I'm pointing right now, the pasuk is very simple. Vayavor Hashem panav vayikra, and that's what we say, and we say it through the word Vinake. But the pasuk goes on in the red. Lo Yinake. The pasuk goes on for many, many words in red. Poken havod avot al banim al bnei banim, etc. We don't say that. We only say part of the pasuk when we say the 13 attributes of mercy. Number 2, Shabbos morning, many people say psukim before the Borei Priya Geffen. Well, many people say the words in bold, Al Kain Beirach Hashem et Yom HaShabbat Vayikatsheu. That's the end of a very long pasuk. In red, it starts with the words, Ki shesh yitamim asa Hashem et hashamayim v'ta'ar v'tadiyam v'kodesh shalbam vayanach b'yom hashvi'i. So how do we just say the end of it? When we put the Torah up to Hagba, many people say, V'zot Torah she'asam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael. No problem with that. That's a full pasuk. And then they say, Al pi Hashem biyad Moshe. That is an end of a very long pasuk. Al pi Hashem yachanu, Al pi Hashem yisaw, et mishmeret Hashem shamaru, Al pi Hashem biyad Moshe. Go, moving on. Kriyat Shema. The Chazan, it says, Hashem Elokechem emet. But that's the end of a pasuk. The pasuk starts with Ani Hashem Elokechem asher hotzeitu etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Hashem Elokechem emet. Just to say what's written here in the purple is the end of a pasuk, not a full pasuk. Moving on, we go ahead Friday night, and we usually fulfill the beautiful minhag brought in the Ramah that says that you don't start Kiddush with the words Vayechulu, but you start a little earlier. The Ramah says just to say Yom HaShishi Vayechulu Hashamayim, because that's the abbreviation of Yud K Vav K, the name of God. Very beautiful. But that's just part of a pasuk. The Kaf HaChaim agrees. A Sephardi, it's not an Ashkenazi Sephardi thing. He says, "V'zeh seder haKiddush tchila omer Yom HaShishi vayechulu Hashamayim." So the Lavush says, go back a little further. Say, Vayihi erev vayihi boker Yom HaShishi, because it makes more sense. Just to say Friday doesn't make sense, but to say it was evening, it was day, it was Friday, you know the context. But any of these ideas is just half of a pasuk. The pasuk starts with the words in red. Vayar Elokim et kol asher asa v'hinei tov me'od vayihi erev vayivoker Yom HaShishi. We don't do that. We just say the end of the pasuk. In Kiddush Levana, moving on, we say Tipol aleim emata v'fachad bigdol zarawacha yitmu ka'aven. That's just part of the pasuk. In Az Yashir, the pasuk goes on, Ad Yavor Amcha Hashem, Ad Yavor Amzu Kanita, as you could see in the red. And in the avoda of Yom Kippur that we say in the Musaf, we say V'chachaya Omer. This is what the Kohen Gadol did. He said a vidu, he said and a confession, and then we end with the words, and we quote the entire pasuk except for one word. But we don't say the word titaru, which is the end of the pasuk. And finally, we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. We say Shema at least twice a day. The Beit Joseph says that in the name of the Ra'ah, their custom was in the morning, before davening, what we call Lo'olam Yehei Adam, that part of davening, where you say the mini Shema, The way he said it was, "Umiyachadim et shimcha pa'amayim bi'ava," the omrim, and we say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, which again is the end of the pasuk. We don't say the beginning, Shema Yisrael. These are all examples in the Torah itself, in Moshe's Torah, that, I repeat, the Gemara said, and I quote the Gemara again, Ko psuke de lo paskinan Moshe, anan lo paskinan le. If Moshe didn't make it into a pasuk, we can't. And I just gave you no less than 8 examples in the Torah that we use, in which that's exactly what we do. In the Nevi'im, not so much. We have one, and that is very, very central in the Kiddush of Chazarat HaShatz. We say, Va'akara ze el ze ve'amar, and indeed, we stop. Then everyone says Kadosh, 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 and then the Chazan says Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. So we don't, on the one hand, not say the full pasuk, but we do have a good partition in between them. Going on to the Ketuvim, when we say Hallel, we say Ana Hashem Oshiana, Ana Hashem Atzlichana. That's one pasuk, but we stop in the middle. Ana Hashem Oshiana, we say twice. First the Chaz and then the congregation. And that's said twice. And then Ana Hashem Atzlichana. So we're stopping in the middle of a pasuk. In the Psukei de Zimra, we say in the morning, Hatahu Hashem Elokim Shebachalta ve'Avram, v'hotzeito me'or kazim tat Shmo Avraham u'matzata levavon ne'eman lefanecha. And that's where the Chazan usually stops. And then everyone continues, V'charoti mo'abrit. As you can see here, that's the middle of a pasuk. The pasuk starts with the words, u'matzata levavon ne'eman lefanecha. More correct would have been, v'samta Shmo Avraham. That's where he should have stopped. But that's not where he stops. In every siddur, the paragraph ends with the words, u'matzata levavon ne'eman lefanecha. Indeed, there is a minhag that when there's a bris in shul, the mohel says the words v'charoti mohabrit pasuk pasuk. Very nice, beautiful minhag. The Magen Avram brings it, but he says tamati. I have a big problem with this minhag. Al shenagu b'yom hamilah shomer mohel v'charot u'mechalek chatzi k'tzat psukim. He doesn't start with the words u'matzatat levavo ne'eman lefanecha. He starts with the words v'charoti mohabrit. And on Rosh Hashanah, the Day of Judgment, we don't want to make too many mistakes. At the end of Shofarot, there's a very emotional part of davening. Then it says Hashem tzvakot yagen aleihim. And in our Machzer, it says, Kein taged al amcha Yisrael bishlomecha. Beautiful words. However, that's not the pasuk. The pasuk actually goes on in the red and says, V'achlu v'chavshu avnei kele v'shatu hamu kamo yain. We totally erase the pasuk and put in something else. Moving on to Shabbos, we say, right after Kel Adon, v'yom hashvi'i meshabech ve'omer mizmor shir liyom haShabbat. That's a full pasuk. Tov laodot laHashem. That's not a full pasuk. Tov laodot laHashem u'zamer shimcha l'yom is the first pasuk. It would only take 3 more words. How come we don't say those 3 words? And when we return the Torah to the ark, we say, Hallelu Hashem Hashem, Ken Yizgav Shmo Levado, middle of a pasuk. Then everyone chimes in, Hodu al Heretz v'Shamayim. Everyone's saying one half of the pasuk. The Chazan saying the first half of the pasuk. Indeed, the Rokeach, in the name of his brother Yechezkiah, says, how can we do this? And finally, at a bris. At a bris, the custom is that the Mol says, Ashrei, Tivchar, Tekarev, Yishkon, Chatzerecha, and everyone chimes in, Nishba'a betuv beitecha kedosh eichalecha. Once again, we're splitting a pasuk in the middle. So after seeing all these examples, it's not surprising that the Magen Avraham comes along and says, Tzarich yud minalan lechalek. You need to really research how is it that we split up psukim. Me'achar to big Gemara mefurash le'isur. It says in the Gemara, it's 100% prohibited. And therefore, it's up to us. Limtzotam malbino. We have to find a good answer for it. When it's 25 examples like we showed, then we better get to work and see why. So in the next few days, we will see various justifications as well as ironclad rules as to when you can quote half a pasuk and when you can't. Moshe emes,